Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Brian Wagner from Prodigio RTS. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to showcase some of the new features for the next release of Prodigio. This is going to be released this Friday, and we're just winding everything up here on this end. But I'm going to kind of walk through some of the things that we've done and talk about the brand new features and everything. This chat is hosted every Wednesday from 11 o'clock Central Standard Time and 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. And we try to go over the general features or different trading strategies that we talk about in Prodigio and all of the automated trading system components. For those of you who don't know, Prodigio is the automated trading system offered exclusively by Thinkorswim and TD Ameritrade. It features a suite of trade idea generation and automation tools and is a launchable component from the Thinkorswim trading platform. To get Prodigio, request Prodigio activation by sending an email into support@thinkorswim.com with the subject line Prodigio activation. So I'm going to get started here. Make sure you all follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/wizardlab, and join us on the web, www.prodigiorts.net. This build of Prodigio, the primary focus was on a new suite of active trader and scanning tools. The set of features was built to augment the already existing features of trade signal generation and trade robotic trading. And the idea was to augment everything with some very powerful scanning functionality and some very powerful active trader functionality. So what I'm looking at to start is our new active trader tab. And what this is it is an information-rich breakdown of some level 2 active trader information. And you'll notice that I've got on this tab, it's coupled on the left-hand side here, I have a level 2 quote panel. In the middle I have my time and sales feed. And on the right I have a real-time chart. And so we kind of tie everything in together here. And what's kind of cool is that when we put this together, we use this component which kind of allows rapid collapsing and expanding of things, so you can kind of show and hide things as you want, and they kind of all tie in together. So however you want to kind of manipulate this, it's kind of cool that you can just easily kind of dock and undock things with the click of a button. But this is focused on delivering to you a high-frequency active traders feed. And so, for example, here I'm looking at Apple in my upper left-hand corner, and I've got a complete, fully featured order entry. It actually has a further drop-down here, which has a couple new features that I can talk about. But what this is a active traders setup. In other words, it gives you full access to the level 2 order book. We talked in a couple prior chats about how you could take advantage of the level 2 book and how you can place orders in at various thresholds of bid and ask to obtain optimal fills. And we've also talked about the time and sales feed, how when you watch the streaming time and sales on the ticker, you can kind of get an idea for where the price action is at. And with that in mind, you can place orders in at limit and try to obtain favorable fills. You can also couple this in with the Prodigio robotic trading component so that when you have automated signals and you populate them in trade optics, etc., you can look at the book and put in orders very quickly. And so, for example, I'll just place some orders in here. We have some kind of features, and I'll run through some of these really quickly. If I look at this from left to right, the first is your symbol selection, and we also have a drop down here which kind of remembers your last symbols that you had selected. The first box is your quantity, right? So I can spin up and down quantity really fast, tying in with the order price. So for example, I can go in at any of the traditional order prices, but if I go in at limit, send a day order, I can quickly send a buy or a sell. So we kind of tied these in to two different buttons. And I can say put an order in at buy, it asks for confirmation, and I hit send, and it places the limit order. So that was filled, and I'm now long an additional 200 shares. So you see my little bubble on the chart here. It says I'm long 300 shares of Apple. And what I can do is I can kind of work this book. I can look right now if I'm an active trader, I can kind of zoom in. I like looking at charts. I also like looking at the spread on the book. But let's say I wanted to liquidate some of this position. I'm long 300 shares, right? And I see that my bids are right now oscillating between about 50 cents by 75 cents. So it's kind of a wide spread. So if I want to sell some of these shares, well, I can kind of, let's see here. I can do a whole bunch of features. I haven't run through all of these myself very in depth, but let's see. I can place a very quick order so that sent a limit order, I'm sorry, a market order to sell 100 shares. One thing is I like to select this. This actually disables that confirmation box. So I'm actually getting in and getting out. So now I liquidated my position. I can kind of go in 100 at market, go in 100 at market. They have this reverse button, right, which allows me to exit and join the other side. So I have there's a flatten button to get out. There's a whole slew of quick order trading functionality, right? So that allows us to kind of get in and get out very fast. I can join the bid, which I believe, let's see, puts in a limit order at the national best bid, which was at the time that was 50 cents. I can join the ask, and this should actually couple it with two different orders working in both directions. I can cancel sells, cancel buys, and of course there's a cancel all button. You see these orders working here over in my visual order book. So there's a lot of very high-powered features over here that allows you to kind of get in and get out of the market very rapidly. And when I was looking at Apple here, this is a very interesting time because it kind of had retraced downward. And let's see here. What do we have? Oh, okay, got it. All right, so you can, for example, get in and out and reverse the position very quickly by looking at the price action and by using the buttons on the active order entry. Let's see here. I can also look at the stream of time and sales information to give me a clue as to where the price action is at. And as trades come in, time and sales, I can see that if I read this out very rapidly, prices are coming in at 63 cents, 72, 67, 64, and they come in very rapidly, and I can kind of get a feel for where the action is at. It also gives me a feel for the volatility range for the price action on the stock. For when I watch this time and sales feed, I can kind of place my buys and sells accordingly, right? And so this is kind of going down now. I can kind of join the bid, right? And that'll put this order in here, and I can actually, if I'm rapid enough, I can kind of move these orders on the order book, and I actually moved it up, so I went long another 100 shares. Let's see, I can join the bid and move it down, actually, right? So that changes that order. There's a lot of very rapid things that you can do from the perspective of an active trader. There's a number of features built into the views themselves. For example, when I look at this level 2 book, we kind of give a visual representation of where the sizes are at. So when I'm looking at this book, right, here's the national best offer right now on 344.75. Right, the size of that is at 27 right now, and so that's filling up the maximum width. And on the bottom, I'm just really doing the same thing at the top. And of course, you can collapse or expand these if you want to have one big view. Again, we kind of have these quick toggles, which are very convenient. And I can just grab these at any time and just change the height on either of them. So if I want to look at one versus the other, I can very quickly collapse and expand. And you can make this as simplistic or as complicated as you want. And again, here's the drop down for all those additional order entry features. Right, so here, that's about it for the active trader part of this. It's very feature rich, and again, in the coming weeks we'll kind of break down the actual, in detail, the buttons themselves and what they do. For example, there's a button here called position. And what this does is this actually, I believe, ties the quantity to your current position size. So I was actually short 400 shares of Apple here, and now I am, if I click this position button, it'll bring the quantity back to the size of my position. So this will spin up and down, you know, and I've got my various other features, which is similar to my more traditional order entry. Right, so that's about it for the active trader. Right, and again, this is just another tab available in the main tabs of Prodigio. And what we've done is we've simplified the docking logic. So for example, I can drag this out at any time, and what I've done is I've dragged this out into a separate window. And this window I can just throw up these to the charts, so I can put my, you know, simple moving averages, my Bollinger Bands up here, etc. And just as I often do when I talk about these Wizard Lab chats, I put these technical studies into the charts to kind of start building a Wizard Lab strategy. And some of the other features have a lot to do with expanding on what you can already do with Wizard Lab. So let's start talking about the new builds of the trade visions themselves. So you notice I have two new tabs over here, Trade Vision 1 and Trade Vision 2. And these Trade Vision tabs are brand new to the scanning system available in Prodigio. What these are capable of doing is scanning very large symbol lists for a number of criterion. And what you'll notice is that these scans update in real time. This system was built as an extremely powerful server-side component, and the main goal for the delivery of this system was that we wanted the results to come back as quickly as possible in real time without any waiting or without polling for scans, etc. So we have an extremely sophisticated divide and conquer scheme set up through various server-side components that breaks the problem down into several constituents. And why is it so hard? Well, the reason is because we scan for so many different things. There's a number of upper and lower technical studies, which I'll walk through very briefly in a moment, but it's scanning for a number of different, say, price event patterns, fundamental analysis, which I'll talk about in detail, and various price events themselves. But this scanner is extremely powerful in its flexibility. And I want to walk you through how you would use this scanner in order to kind of perform trade automation or to set it up with Wizard Lab. All right, so let's start taking a look at this from the top down. First, you'll notice I have two main sections. I have a slider here, you know, which is again coupled by one of these components. This slider separates the two main levels inside of the Trade Vision. On the top is the Trade Vision settings panel, which allows you to kind of define and toggle where your scan criterion belong. You can use this to affect the result set, and like I mentioned, this result set will update in real time. In the top, at first I have my symbol lists, right? And I can either select all symbols, which will run the scan. You'll notice this number will continue to change. It'll run the scan against the master suite of these symbol sets, or I can break it down into one of these various categories. The categories that we have available are the NYSE, the NASDAQ exchange, Amex exchange, a category explicitly for all equity tradable funds, right? And what that does is this has only ETFs inside of it. I have double long ETFs, double short, triple leverage, various kinds of ETFs since they're extremely popular and they have high volume, making them extremely valuable for active trading. We've got the main indices, Dow 30, the NASDAQ, S&P, the Russells, you know, up to the Russell 3000, and various other futures, forex indices, etc., categories that you can perform the scan on. Shortable only, optionable only, what these do is they intersect the set. So this will show you only shortable stocks, this will show you only optionable stocks, and they'll reduce the number of results that you get. And in order to demonstrate what these sliders do is they change the range of the filtering, right? And you'll notice, watch this number over in the lower right hand corner. This will update in real time, right? And so as I drag this to the left and to the right, it'll add or remove depending on whether or not I make my scan more restrictive or less restrictive. And what I can do is I can actually sort, and you'll notice that this introduces a new paging system that we have available for the quote tables. When I have 1080 matches, in order to optimize the way that, say for example, your computer uses the internet to stream data, you can manipulate this page size. And so we set the default to 200 results per page, but you can change this and you can go up to 2000. But what this does is introduce a page system. $20, you'll see that I'm flipping through pages sorted by price where all of these prices are inside of the ranges that I specify in my filter, right? And so what I can do is I can drop this down and this will cut my results, right? Well, actually you'll notice because I have this sorted by last, I've got $144. So let me drop this down to something past, say, 71. Right, and see that cuts these results out and I get much smaller result set, less pages, etc. Now what you can do is you can get more sophisticated. Of course I can look at, say, average volume, right, and I can filter down by various volume restrictions, etc. Right, so this will say I have to have at least 400,000 shares average volume, and as I do this my result set will get smaller and smaller as I add more conditions. Now if I'm too restrictive, right, if I'm too restrictive, the result sets will drop to 0. Right, so that's why we wanted to make this real time, because a lot of users out there use Prodigio in order to perform backtest of various technical analysis conditions, etc. And the problem with the backtest is you have to wait for the results to come back. Right. Well, what makes this scan system so unique is that your results for your technical analysis scans come back immediately, and those results are immediately reflected in the result set. So let's actually look at something a little more interesting. Speaking of Wizard Lab, if I jump over into technical studies, let's take a look at some of the upper technical studies. All right. So here's some of the exponential moving average studies. And these are scans, right? So these are running all the time on the servers consistently. For example, we're running 20 period, 50 period, and 200 period scans on exponential moving averages. The linear regression channels, Keltner channels, Bollinger Bands, Donchian, etc. in here. They're all, and what I can do is I can search for things, for example, that are trading above their 50 period EMA versus things that are trading below their 50 period EMA. And you'll notice that there's, various things that happen here. For example, I just selected a scan, show me all of those symbols that are trading below their 50 period EMA. And look at how fast that changes, by the way. That changes almost instantly. When I flip these to below the 50 period moving average, most of these changes are negative. And that actually makes sense. However, some of them are positive, but that does happen. For example, when I look at a 50 period EMA, and that was, what was that on? That was on the 5-minute chart. Right, so let's bring that up again. Right, I put a 5-minute exponential moving average on here, and that was 50, right? What that's telling me is that even though it's up on the day, this price range is currently underneath this line. You see this yellow line here? Let me make it a little thicker. Let's see. Standard indicators, and make it a little bit thicker. So in other words, some of the things that you might just assume may not necessarily be true, and that's the beauty of this scanning system. It kind of points these out to you, which makes not only your automated trade signal generation and robotic trading more sophisticated. It also makes your active trading more sophisticated, and even your swing and investment trading, etc. It kind of brings out more information because the results are so immediately at your fingertips. Now, exponential moving averages are a technical analysis study. And what we did with all of the quotes panels is we augmented them with a fully featured study engine suite. What I mean by that is, well, let's take a look at the quotes table. You'll notice this appears a lot different than the prior version of Prodigio. And I just want to walk through some of these differences really quick. What we have here inside of this table is I'm actually rendering linear regression slope values. And this is based on 1 minute values, 10 periods going off of the close with forming evaluation on. All right, so what this means is it's a technical analysis study which is driven by some parameters, and data is flowing directly into the client, and it's generating the resulting numbers and presenting them to you inside of the quote table. Right? So for example, I can go into customize quotes, and you'll notice that this dialog is much different than it was in the past. This quote table is capable of a monstrous number of columns. Right? You'll notice every single one of these things that I'm sliding through on the left-hand side, which should be very familiar with you if you've used Wizard Lab in the past. Every single one of these studies is available as a column inside of any quotes table, and that includes the result set of the trade vision. I'm going to show you how that ties in a little bit later. So for example, if I want to look at, say, RSI values, I can go over into the RSI, right, and I've got a description over here, and I can say, okay, add the column. You can also drag these over. But I can place this at any location that I want, and I can set up my parameters in the lower right-hand corner. So for example, I need to select an interval, which I like looking at, say, 1 minute data because it's the most quickly moving. But RSI has a number of periods, and 14 is very popular for RSI, so is 10. Apply to, you can select what adapter you want to apply the study to, and typically you apply RSI to the close, but you could apply it to the open, high, low, to the volume inside of the OHLCs, etc. And forming bar on or off. What forming bar does is it differentiates between giving you signals or giving you evaluations before OHLC bars close or waiting for them to close. And the major difference, I'm just going to put that on here, so that will come up. And you'll notice my results came back. So here's my RSI values that will be updating. You see how these update in real time against my symbol list. And the difference between forming bar is that if I look at, for example, Chart Trader Pro, forming bar simply means that the values are volatile until the OHLC closes. Right? So I'm looking at a 5-minute chart right now, and so this chart, as it streams data in, right, you see a new OHLC came in. When that happens, this becomes the forming bar because that bar will change with time, and then this one gets locked into place, and this value doesn't change anymore. That's simply the difference between the forming bar and the non-forming bar. You can pick inside of the quotes panel whether or not you want these columns to show you the forming bar value or not forming bar value. And this becomes extremely useful when you're using a system such as trade optics or robotic trading. The other thing that really draws your attention here is that notice I've got this very colorful column in here. It's got a lot of reds and a couple greens inside of it. What this is it is it's a true or false study. Right? When we talk about Wizard Lab, we often build rules that differentiate between numerical values that you see inside of these pound icons versus true and false values that you see inside of these other true-false icons. The difference is that they produce a different result. True or false, you can think of like a signal. And whenever Wizard Lab produces a signal, that requires a true or a false. Right? So we need this in order to be able to say make a trade or don't make a trade, fire an event into trade optics or don't fire an event into trade optics. And so any time that you have something that results in a true or false signal, what we've done is we present that to you inside of the quote table as a little historical signal. And red signal means false, green signal means true, so it's on or off. And this is my rules study. Right? So when I create anything in Wizard Lab and I save this as a rule, that rule is saved inside of my rules. Right? And what this allows you to do is create any kind of signal or alert, any kind of alert that you could imagine, you can build inside of Wizard Lab, and 100% of all of those rules get tied into your column editor. Right? So when I go back into Customize Quotes, I can scroll down, I can kind of collapse these here. I can go into the My Rules, and every rule that I have saved shows up in My Rules, and you can drag this out into a column. You can specify how many columns you want it to remember, and that will plug it in, right? And it'll calculate everything. When it gets all the results, you'll see the results of the signals over the last n number of bars. And I changed this to 8, so you see the last 8 on this study. And what I did here with this moving average cross is the logic says I am looking at a 3-period 1-minute moving average crossing a 20-period moving average. Right? So that doesn't happen often. It happens every now and then. And so when I scroll down, I'll notice, okay, on Intel, this just happened on Intel, but it did not happen in the last 4 minutes. It happened 4 minutes ago on Johnson & Johnson, and it happened 3 minutes ago on Morgan Stanley. So that could be very interesting if you want to create, say, high-frequency alert systems, if you want to set up events on, say, daily bars, and you want to know, did something break out over its highest high in the last 10 days, etc. You can set up a visual alert queue by creating a rule in Wizard Lab and plugging it into the quote table. So that said, we built this system so that everything renders inside of a quote table. And all of these trade vision scanners have the same functionality. So for example, if I'm scanning for exponential moving averages, I can go to Customize Quotes. I can search really quick for anything that has the word exponential moving average in it. Right? And you'll notice this has it in the name and in the description. And I can drag this out into my selected columns. And if I'm looking for, say, 5-minute 50-period exponential moving average, I can just change this right here, apply to the close, turn forming bar on, because these calculations are going to be comparing price against the exponential moving average, right? And then that's going to deploy these EMA values, and I'm going to get my result set. And I'll then be able to compare all of the last prices against the exponential moving average prices, right? And you'll see that they're all below those. What I can also do is I can sort by the exponential moving average, and that's also an extremely useful feature, especially, for example, if I look for things that are based on RSI. Right? Let's take an example of a lower technical study where I look at the RSI indicator, and let's see, hopefully I didn't pass it. I might have passed it already. Relative Strength Index, here we go. Let's look at 15-minute RSIs, because that's something that's extremely popular. And because I already have, see, I have 2 technical studies selected. I have the below the 50-period EMA. Right, so let's look for reversal plays. When I look for reversal plays, one way to do that is by looking for stocks that have an RSI below 30. So I'm actually changing my slider so that I'm only looking at stocks that are A, below their 50-period exponential moving average, and B, with an RSI 14-period value less than 30. And what I've got in my scan results is a very nice tradable handful of symbols that I can then evaluate and inspect and decide if it's opportune to make a trading decision. So I can go up here and let me plug in RSI. And let's change this to 15-minute. let's see here, 14 forming bar on, apply to the close, and this will plug these in. And these results, when they come in, if you have forming bar on, your results may be a little more leading than the scan. Anytime you have a difference between these discrete sliders, these updated a little less frequently than the, say, price events or the fundamental scans. Right? So I've got one that's on the edge here. But you see how all these RSI values, right, are all at or below 30. And what I can do is I can pull these up on a chart. I can load these in, and then I can craft this and use my active trading tools, etc., to decide whether or not it's a good time to trade this. All right, so let's see here. So I'm going to go back to my trade vision, and the next thing I want to talk about is the fundamentals. Right? So the next thing that we've added into the system is, if I go to Wizard Lab, we have a new section down here called Fundamental. And what you'll see here inside of Wizard Lab is a very large new category that has a lot of new fundamentals inside of it. Fundamentals are any values that they really don't update during the day unless it's tied to a price event. But fundamentals we consider to be anything that's based on the reports, that a company issues, or the collective total assets that they own or shares outstanding, things that are related to the operation of the business behind the company. And so these fundamentals apply to equities and other derivatives, such as ETFs, etc. But what these are is, it is a suite of various values that you can use in order to either A, create rules inside of Wizard Lab, or B, create various scanning components. So for example, if I want to look at the market capitalization of a company, I can use in Wizard Lab this market cap, and I can use it with the various logical operators to see, all right, only show me things that have a market cap greater than 30 million, etc. I can use these in as filters to my scans and trade optics and automated trading. And all of these, we kind of built them into the system so they're automatically available inside of Wizard Lab, but they're also available inside the quote column editor. Right? So if I take a look at, if I customize these quotes, right, if I want to see the market caps, right, I can drill down, and I actually want to see market cap. Right? I can add market cap in, and what that'll do is that'll put market cap, it'll go stream down the data from the server, and now I've got a column that shows me all of the market cap for these stocks. You can include this in with, right, and so with your filter, market cap, we have these broken down into sections based on whether or not they're general fundamentals, based on financials, profitability, growth, etc. And so market cap, let's see, should be maybe not financials, maybe not financial health. Oh, actually, this might be under basic. We actually have this one under basic, but it is a fundamental. And what I can do is I can filter this list based on the relative magnitude of the market cap. And so again, if I drag it out to something that's too far, it's going to reduce or add back into my result set depending on where I have the value set. Right, so there's an entire suite of fundamental values, and I can look at things such as the shares outstanding on a stock, revenue, and a lot of these, actually these are the financials. A lot of these have to do with the earning reports. A lot of them have to do with statistics, operating ratios, etc. Things that really make the company go through. And you notice you have alpha, beta here. These are actually the things that we categorize under general are possibly the most important fundamentals that you kind of see everywhere, such as dividend and dividend yield, the PE, which is price to earnings ratio, alpha, beta, book value per share, and enterprise value. But there are different financials in here, like if you want to drill down fundamentally on, say, net income or operating cash flow, etc. All of these accounting and financial terms that you really deal with in the real world are all here under various tabs. profitability, cost of goods sold, operating margin. All of these things are available as filters. And at any time, if you want to see the values for these different fundamentals, etc., you can bring them up by adding them as quotes inside the quote column. Right? So if I want to look at, let's say EPS, earnings per share, I think I might have had that up on the other one. The period type defines, there's 3 different period types. TTM is called trailing 12 month, MRQ is most recent quarter, and 1Y is 1 year. So anything that the system supports will show up there as a selectable period type. Right? So here I've got a column with all the earnings per share for the TTM report for all of these symbols in my basket. Right? There's cash flow, various year over year, etc. Ratios related to cash flow, some financial health qualifications, and efficiency ratios. So everything is available inside of these tabs, and those are things that are very interesting to drill down on, especially if you're going to be swing trading or looking to rebalance a portfolio, etc. This scanner really extends the range of Prodigio beyond quite simply the active traders platform. This is probably one of the most powerful scanners that's out there, and the very plain and simple reason is the speed at which it's able to return your result sets. And so I can just quite simply, if I was looking at EPS, right, I can kind of tweak these in and out very rapidly, and you see the speed at which it kind of adds and drops these values depending on the ranges that I set, and I can kind of control this sliding. That speed is what's so hard to come by. This is why you don't really see this in other trading platforms. It's extremely difficult to engineer. Okay, so I talked about, say, with the trade vision, I talked about the basic, the technical studies, and the fundamentals. You also have some very interesting price events. A lot of people who trade off of, say, fib ratios, all of these fib ratio events are inside of here, which is very cool. If I look at, say, a pullback from a high, right, let me actually unfilter some of these. By the way, you can always say reset all, and that will reset your filters. Right? So if you kind of add a lot of filters and you just want to start over, you can always hit reset all, and I can go back in and say, okay, let's start scanning the NASDAQ. Right? So that's a lot of symbols. Okay, well, let's put a price range on here just to reduce my symbol list, etc. Right? So let's look at price events. Now I have a price range selected. Let's take a look at if there's any Fibonacci retracements coming back. And these fib retracements, they're either from the high or from the low. And since, let's see, I think it was a little bit bullish today. Yeah, a little bit bullish. It's kind of choppy, kind of sideways, a little bit bullish. Let's see if we get any Fibonacci pullbacks from the high. All right, so let's start with this one, 23.6%. You'll notice that these ratios align with the Fibonacci the available Fibonacci ratios that are available for pullbacks. And what I'm actually controlling here is the range above and below. Right? So let's actually take an example here. I'm doing a 4% above and 4% below. And let's actually tighten this up so I can drill down on something that's really right at the fib level. Right, so I've got here, okay, let's look at SLGN right here. I'm going to load this on a chart. And let's drop this. Now I believe, let's see here, if I go to the start of the day, I believe I have a drawing tool actually which shows me the Fibonacci's. Let's see here. So here's Fibonacci retracements. And if I draw a line, and pardon me if I get this wrong with respect to the chart itself. If I start at the low of the day and go to the high of the day, I believe that shows me my fib lines. right? So what that does is the Fibonacci retracements represent value areas which are extremely potent. And by potent, I mean they're naturally occurring numbers. And my theory on this, like you see how it tends to bounce off of these Fibonacci numbers? You see how there's like a high, or there's a high that's very close to this 38.2, and you see that there's highs around this 23.6 number. This tends to happen, and my theory on this is that if you study Fibonacci sequences from a mathematical context, Fib sequences are based on things that happen very naturally in nature, and it's actually based on an optimization problem related to growth. It's really interesting. I recently read some things about how plants optimize the amount of sunlight they get by using a Fibonacci sequence to disperse the growth of their leaves. It's really interesting. It's not because they're smart, it's because that's the best way to do it. And over millions of years of evolution, it appears that they've kind of naturally grown that way. So another thing that's very tied in with nature is human perception, the way that we look at things and the way our eyesight works and the way that our judgment works. And my theory on the use of the fib ratios is that the reason why price tends to oscillate off these numbers is because us as traders perceive these numbers as being extremely significant in terms of moves and profits and losses. So what's happening here on SLGN is that the price is very close to this 23.6 fib number. You see the price is trading at right now is 43.1, which is, it's actually exactly at that fib number. That's why when I do my scan, that SLGN is within this very tight range. Right? And I can make this very tight. And I can't make it too tight because these are based off of ratios. But it's showing me that this is at my 23.6% pullback from the high. So is TCLP. If I load this on the chart and pull this up, and I'm a little bit slow right now with the broadcast, but if I pull TCLP up, what that notice this is kind of dragging on me right now. Okay, here we go. Now this is a thinly traded stock. You'll notice this by the volume. But I can do the same thing. I can put these fib retracements on, and you'll see that this close value is going to be near the high, which is right here, and that's going to be that percent pullback from the high. All right, so it's just an example of some really cool things that you can do with the system. So just to finish this out here. And notice how this price over here is a little bit different than the dashed line. And that's because I had loosened up my parameters to be a little bit less restrictive. And under Trade Vision, you can control all of that. All right, so let's go back over into Trade Vision. Okay, and so let's continue talking about some of these other price events and the patterns that are available inside of Trade Vision. All right, so let me let's see here. Okay, testing. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, anyway, to show some of these patterns actually, in my other section on the patterns, what I have available are a complete breakdown categorization of single bar patterns and multi-bar patterns. And a lot of the things that are available, say, in the Wizard Lab Builder, which are a little bit mysterious, such as gravestone doji. How's a gravestone doji different than a normal doji? These are all available as things that I can scan inside of the trade vision. And when I look at these, I tend to want to start with a larger result set, because there tends to be very few actual hits on these patterns, and that's just by nature of the pattern. Some of these are just so restrictive. What this means is that on a 15-minute chart, it's able to identify a gravestone doji, right? And so these are defined by the definitions of the pattern themselves, and anytime you want to know what that definition is, you can scroll your mouse over and it'll put the definition in the upper left hand box. I can actually click this here and it kind of locks it in, but I can look at a single bar candlestick pattern which has no body, is comprised of a large upper shadow and no lower shadow, etc. So these things are available inside of the scanning set, and you have your single bar patterns which represent only one bar, and you have multi-bar patterns which represent more than one bar. So this scanning system is extremely powerful because it is tied in with the server-side scanning component. This front end is linked in with your Thinkorswim trading account, and you can tie everything together with the Trade Now button, and you can use this result list in order to find the trading opportunity and then further drill down using the active trader tools. One other thing to mention is that if you have a list that you want to do something with, you can always export that list into a symbol list, right? And so I can call this scan results 2, right? I can save this, and I've actually got a Prodigio list called scan results 2, which has the output of all of those various symbol lists, right? And then I can take all of these lists and I can export this, etc. But more importantly, I can take that list, I can tie this to any quotes panel, and then I can do things such as deploy it in RTS trading, right, by selecting scan results 2, and I can deploy a robotic strategy off of it. I can go to Trade Optics, I can deploy it here, or I can do Wizard Lab in the back test. Strategy and run that against backtest and kind of see what I get, etc. Right? So all of this is tied in with the system. You'll notice that this set of backtesting results is tied to that symbol list, which I got by using the scan. So that's a very brief overview of all the new features in the next build. I hope I'm not missing anything. By the end of the week, and you can look forward to enjoying all of these new features going from that point on. I'm going to have to wrap up today's presentation by saying thanks everybody